Hi, so today I'm going to be explaining my social studies lesson plan as a part of our economics unit plan. So today in my specific lesson, I'm going to be going over the topic of jobs, but also connecting it back to my science lesson plan, which was avalanches. And I'm going to be using an overarching theme in this lesson plan, which is about chain reactions, because at the end of this, I want students to be able to define the term chain reaction as well as think of a real life chain reaction example and tie this into how a weather event such as a natural disaster can affect jobs and how this can affect further things down the line. I want students to see the whole correlation between this. So to begin the lesson, to activate students' prior knowledge, I'm going to ask students to give me examples of jobs, and this is to just get students thinking about jobs, maybe what they want to be when they grow up, maybe it's something their parents do, something their best friends' parents do, or maybe they're hearing jobs that they've never heard before, so it's new to them, or it's stuff that they do know. And I just want students to give me examples to get the lesson rolling. And then in the engage part of the lesson, I'm going to put pictures of jobs up on the board, such as these. So we have truck drivers. It's very popular nowadays, especially with Amazon, pilots, mailman, an electrician, a hairdresser, just a wide variety. And we are going to have a discussion about how they think a natural disaster affects each of these jobs. This is a very broad question because we're taking two totally different topics of an avalanche and natural disaster and talking about how it's affecting these everyday jobs. So I just think it'll be neat to hear students' answers about this and how they can piggyback off of each other. And then to further explore into this lesson, we are going to brainstorm what the word chain reaction means. So I'm going to have this written up on the board in bold, and then students are going to give me their answers, and I'll write that all around the word on the board. And then after we get enough answers, I'm going to look it up online. We will do that together, and then I will write that in a different color so students can see a formal definition. However, this doesn't mean that their definition is wrong. And then I'll have students draw on a piece of paper after we learn what a chain reaction is, a real life example of a chain reaction. So this could be dominoes, a water ripple effect, passing sickness around. If you're late, this is a very big chain reaction, or spreading a rumor. And students are going to draw their example on a piece of paper. And then we are going to hone in the next part of the lesson on the domino example. So as a class, we're going to kind of go over it, but students are still going to fill it out themselves. So we're going to decide what is the cause or force that starts everything, which is the avalanche. And then we're going to say, what does this affect? And I want them to think about the topic of jobs. It can't just be, oh, this affects a random thing. So this affects, so we'll fill it out. It affects jobs and businesses. This affects other people wanting that job or business or the service of that business. And then affects the overall community because if they're not getting something they want, and overall an overarching theme is the economy as well. So we'll then go over that, and to kind of really help students see this from a fun perspective, we're going to play a game called An Avalanche is Coming. This is kind of a game I made up, and students are going to receive a little badge, and they're either going to have a job, so they're going to be one of those 5 jobs we mentioned at the start of the whole lesson, or they're going to be the customer or client on the other end of that job who's receiving their item or service. And around the room in a compass-like pattern, there's going to be these colored dots, and up on the board is going to be a key that explains the red dot is at the north end of the room, the blue dot is at the south, east, yellow, and so on. And I will read scenarios. I'll go down here to show the scenarios. But these are the little badges, and then the scenarios are, one will say, the heavy snow blocked all southern major highways from being used. Amazon truck drivers could not get to the post office in time to deliver the packages. Who is affected? The customers waiting on packages. So music will be playing, and when music stops, students will go to a dot, and students can either go any direction, counterclockwise, clockwise, as long as they're not running, and then they'll stop. A scenario will be pulled from a little basket, and then read, and if there is, say, an Amazon truck driver on the southern dot, which is whatever color, that student will be out. And then if there's a person who has the badge that they're waiting on the packages, which is like this one, then they're going to be out too. And this shows the effect of how the heavy snow affects the Amazon driver, and how, because this affects the Amazon driver, it also affects the customer as well. And cards will keep being pulled from the basket in red until there's only one student left. However, a fun little twist will be put into the game, and an avalanche card will show up. And it'll say, an avalanche, I'll scream, an avalanche is coming. And then students will get to the nearest dot, and then I will read, a skier was up on the south mountain this morning, and down came a humongous avalanche. And whoever is on the southern dot of the room, whatever color that is, everyone will be out. And this just shows the correlation between an avalanche may not just affect one specific job like that heavy snowfall did to the truck driver. It affects so many different things. So it just shows how massive of an impact this is. So all those students on that dot will be out. And this also helps keep the game moving faster. And then to kind of wrap up the lesson, to evaluate it, students will pick a job. They'll pick a weather event. It can be one natural disaster they've been learning in other lessons, or it can be a small weather event such as snow or rain. And students will draw a chain reaction of that happening, like a little comic strip. And under each event, students will write a one-sentence explanation of how the previous event affected the next upcoming event, because I don't want students to just think a weather event affects a job these three different ways. I want them to see the correlation in the specific chain reaction, really reiterate chain reaction of how that flows. And that just kind of wraps up my social studies lesson and science lesson connection of how avalanches or natural disasters affects the economic portion, which is jobs. I think this is a really good introduction to, I think talking about economics with kids can be a little challenging. And so I think introducing about jobs, goods and services, and the connection between jobs, I think this is a good lesson to do that.